On April 19th, the MTG Goldfish podcast crew announced another set of house bans, which has generated some more discussion on the whole house ban topic, the Rule Zero topic. They decided to ban Field of the Dead and Glacial Chasm from their group, and they had also banned a number of other cards such as Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Jeweled Lotus, Dockside Extortionist, Gaia's Cradle, Smothering Tithe, and Rhystic Study. And actually, I agree with most of these bans. It's really funny, but the whole Twitter thing kind of devolved into them eventually making a segment in their newest podcast, the Cowboy Bebop promo podcast, where they talk about a number of topics. And they also mentioned the house ban list, and so there's a whole segment on that. And the thing I found really funny at first was this reply here, soft. The first reply, one of the first replies to the tweet from Saffron Olive was just the most hilarious thing ever. I don't think it's soft. I just think it's hilarious. The house bans of MTG Goldfish are really interesting to me because they show that the group is aware of what their tendencies are, what their metagame is, what the cards they tend to abuse amongst themselves. And this works really well in small playgroups or consistent playgroups. Maybe if you go to your LGS or you play at a friend's home or something like that, then house bans, I feel, are very helpful in creating a fun environment. And I just thought I made a quick meme here when it's been over 2 days since the last ban list video. That's how I feel right now. I do have another number of other topics in the hopper that I'm gonna put out soon here. So, but yeah, for now, this is another Rule Zero type of video. And what exactly is Rule Zero? I'll mention it quickly. It's a long-standing tradition in many games. This is from the official mtgcommander.net website, and it's the philosophy that each group is best at deciding what is most fun for them, etc., etc. And so there's no enforcement arm. Nobody's gonna, tell you what to do. But Rule Zero does not allow you to make rules at like larger events. For example, if you go to a Command Fest, you can't just be like, well, our house banned that card, you're not allowed to play it. If it's legal in the official Commander ban list and you go to a wider playgroup type deal or event, then the house ban is not so much a thing. But again, amongst your own local play groups, I think it's a good thing. I think house bans can be very helpful. There was another podcast that was in January from the Command Zone, which I found this one pretty enlightening because they mentioned their own house bans. And it's not even really like bans. A lot of these are, I think the Command Zone had like soft bans on certain cards, and they had it for a number of reasons. One of them was editing. They didn't want to edit a lot of triggers, for example. So Constant Miss is one they mentioned. Grave Pact was the one where they mentioned that had a lot of triggers. If it forces them to do a lot of extra editing, they tend to avoid certain cards like that. Aura Shards, another one with a lot of triggers. This card, like all of these, I agree with. That I tabbed to on the screen. Constant Miss, Grave Pact, Aura Shards, Rest in Peace, Blood Moon. They didn't officially ban a lot of these. They just don't generally play them on camera very much. Although they do play a lot of Rhystic Study, which I find kind of funny because that card is just... The thing, actually, and this is actually, this whole topic gets me to a new point in that Rhystic Study, I think, is the most overpowered card in Commander, above Dockside, above everything else. However, if I could only ban a small number of cards, I think Rhystic Study is lower on my list than more insidious cards like Constant Mists. And I'm glad Command Zone brought this up because Constant Mists in Casual Commander, and this is a Casual Commander channel, it's not CEDH, but in Casual Commander, Constant Mists is too oppressive and too backbreaking for most creature decks. Now, in theory, you can get around it by by 3 players attacking that same 1 player, so they're forced to cast the Mists over and over again, but that isn't often the case. So cards like this are way too strong for Casual and way too backbreaking. I actually feel similarly about Grave Pact to a slightly lesser extent. In theory, you can beat Grave Pact. Constant Miss, if you're an attacking deck and they play a Constant Miss in your Voltron or something, or maybe your mono red, what are you going to do? Like, you lost. Great Pact is a little bit similar, maybe not quite as bad because the other opponent has to have creatures, but they usually do. This one I feel is not healthy for casual commander. I would actually ban that card. I'd ban Cosmos, Great Pact, Aura Shards. I had this in one of my decks a while back. I took it out. I actually sold a foil original set printing of this because it was just, I'm never going to play this card. It's a Great Pact, but for artifacts and enchantments. And it's just insane. Like, this shuts down entire archetypes. As annoying as Enchantress is as an archetype, this card is way over the top. Like, you're not even playing the game anymore. You're just like, oh, I played one card. You can't play your deck anymore. Similar to Rest in Peace. If they have a graveyard deck, Rest in Peace not only comes in, exiles everything, but permanently prevents them from doing anything with their graveyard until Rest in Peace is gone. So that's another brutal card. Blood Moon, actually, I don't know that I'd necessarily ban Blood Moon at all. I don't think I would, because this incentivizes basic lands. It incentivizes monocolor and sometimes dual color decks. A lot of the 5-color decks with, for example, Ur-Dragon, if we go to the top commanders here. So 4-color, 5-color, 3-color, 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 5-color. A lot of colors in these. So Blood Moon does kind of hold them in check, although arguably it's not very fun because you get blindsided by it. So this one further down the list for me as far as what I might house ban. Format-wide ban, like, I don't think they're going to format-wide ban Constant Miss. And I mentioned Ristic Study earlier. There's a lot of new printings of this card. I don't think they're going to do it. I would if I were them, but they're not going to do it. So I appreciate the MTG Goldfish podcast for putting out a segment explaining it. They explained a little bit on Twitter as well, but the the idea of house bans is strong in my opinion. And we have a couple in our group that I'll mention here in my main play group anyway. One of the decks used to have a Darkest Hour combo with the old Teysa, and so that player took out the card Darkest Hour because one of the other players was like, well, I know you have that in your deck, so I'm going to attack you every time. And so it's like, well, yeah, by the metagame, it makes sense. If I'm a player and I have a card and somebody else knows they have to kill me in order for them to have a chance, or it feels like they're going to lose to that card even if I don't have it, even if I have no tutors for it. I don't even know if the player had a tutor for it ever. I think it's just the threat, like the sword of Damocles over your head of a combo, like a 2-card, essentially 2 or 3-card combo that could just instantly win the game, like Kiki Jiki style. So we didn't like officially ban this. The player is welcome to play whatever he wants, but for the health and variety of our metagame, that player's decided to at least temporarily not play it. Same thing for Insurrection. There's a different player who used to play Insurrection, and this card actually made me a little like inwardly salty, because it's like, it's 8 mana. It's it's not really broken at all. It's just kind of cheesy. It's just kind of a cheesy way to win because like everybody builds up a board and then you're just like, well, I win unless you have a counter, So. I'm really glad the players decided to put this one on the bench for a little while. Again, we haven't hard banned anything, but these are 2 examples of cards that we can that you can think about in your group, and it doesn't have to be Smothering Tithe or Gaia's Cradle or Dockside Extortionist, but cards that are a problem for you, that cause problems, like Field of the Dead and Glacial Chasm. From the MTG Goldfish were causing them problems. It was just devolving into that. They would clone and copy Field of the Dead. They would generate whole decks around it, and it just became an issue. So with these house bans, I think everybody should experiment more with just putting things on the bench. Have like a rotating ban list amongst your own local play group and see how that goes for you. See if you can adapt. And I think it's fun because what it incentivizes you to do is branch out and find new cards for your decks. And I think that's a good thing. I think everybody should try it. So yeah, house bans gets a thumbs up from me.